Hello everyone and welcome to the GeekWave. This is the low budget show. It's the show so low it has no budget. And we are ramping up to Comic-Con. I say that loosely just because I don't have a lot of news to talk about. But I feel like we're going to have a lot of stuff coming from Comic-Con this year. It's a couple weeks away. I think it's 4 weeks away, so we'll build up to that. We'll do a big video talking about everything at Comic-Con. And then the following month is D23, so there's probably going to be more stuff revealed there. So that's the summer, isn't it? I just laid out everything we're going to be doing this summer, which is cool. Like at the time that this video is being recorded, number one, it's Canada Day. So happy Canada Day to all my Canadians out there. Go read an Alpha Flight comic book. If you are in Canada, and maybe this is just like my local Toys R Us, but they have recently converted things into, what's the company, HMV? Is that it? The one, like the old place that was bought out by Sunrise Records. Well, they are making like a deal with Toys R Us where now you can go to Toys R Us and you can buy like your vinyls and your books and your DVDs and everything. But my local Toys R Us, that's the one closest to me, they have a huge complete omnibus of the John Byrne Alpha Flight, and I'm always tempted to pick it up. So I just bought the first issue of Alpha Flight. Maybe it's like code for me to get into Alpha Flight some more, but happy Canada Day nonetheless. We have some news to talk about, and some stuff regarding Marvel going to Hall H. They're going back. I didn't really put that in my news, but we're talking about Comic-Con anyways. Marvel's coming back to Hall H. Probably some big shit going to be announced there. There's pictures floating around currently that show Fantastic Four stuff, which does lead me to believe we're actually going to be announcing some stuff there. So that's actually interesting. But truthfully, we just have a couple trailers to talk about for some new movies, all of which are very weird. Weird movies to exist. So the first one we're going to talk about is a trailer for the new film from Robert Zemeckis, whose last feature was Pinocchio, a very broad reimagining. It's not even a reimagining. It's just taking the plot of Pinocchio and dragging it out even longer in a weirder way. Well, now he's doing another movie. It is called Here. Now, Here is based on a book or something. It's either like a picture book or a comic strip or just like the history of world or whatever. Either way, it's reuniting Robert Zemeckis. I think Eric Roth is also writing the script, so he's reuniting with Zemeckis, Tom Hanks, and Robin Wright. The Forrest Gump crew. Well, what if the crew that gave us Forrest Gump came back to tell us another, movie about like the American dream or something? Here is this movie that's going to have like a still camera. It's not going to move. It's going to be stuck in one location, and it's going to chronicleize the life of like a family in like a span of like 100 years or something or other. Basically, we're going to see from one location a family's birth, rebirth, and whatever, with Tom Hanks and Robin Wright playing the leads. Okay, that is essentially doing like a sitcom thing, but that's not that interesting. Don't forget this is a Robert Zemeckis picture, and he likes to use a gimmick or two. So he's been working with like this new, I think it's called like Metaphysics Company. They're like this production house, and what they do is develop this new technology that means you can in real time capture like a de-aging technology on cameras. So when you are looking at the dailies for a film, you can see like the specific image that you generated into that and how it's going to like appear on the film, so you don't have to like do it in post. That is very interesting. Probably the second most interesting thing about this movie, aside from like the Forrest Gump people reuniting. It's so early in the development of that idea that there's no way it's going to look perfect. So you just got to like bear with things that's actually going to get somewhere. The other problem with that is we know what both Tom Hanks and Robin Wright look like as younger people because they've been in the public eye for decades. So that's going to be hard to wrap your head around for a minute. I see the format, like I think the formation of this technology, I should say, is very interesting. There's definitely something here to attempt, and it could be useful. It also sets up a bad precedent that this could be the standard going forward, where we don't even attempt to cast young people for roles anymore. We just have Harrison Ford wrap himself in like our metaphysics, and there you go. This is all he has to do now. The trailer itself is very strange. I don't know if it's going to be like a broad appealing movie for a lot of people, but it is kind of interesting that it does exist, and that's kind of cool. I'm always down for Zemeckis attempting something. It's just a shame the stuff that he attempts to make doesn't like stay relevant in the culture. Like, we don't really use the Polar Express stuff anymore. So I don't know. Maybe something cool will come of it. I don't know though. It's just whatever. I guess we'll see. We also just got a trailer for Hellboy, the Crooked Man. Yeah, that's right. In our lifetimes, folks. Actually, in like the span of 20 years, because I think the first Hellboy movie came out in 2005 or something. In the span of 20 years, we have seen 3 people play Hellboy. And now the most recent film is coming to us, I'm guessing next year sometime. Who knows if that's actually going to exist or just be something that's lost to time, but whatever. Here we go. It looks fine. It definitely looks cheaper than the previous 2, which probably makes sense because we are no longer in an era where Hellboy is going to get butts in seats. But hey, Mike Mignola still wants to attempt to do stuff with that universe, so do this and let him try to have fun over there. I'm not against that. I just find it very interesting that we're still doing Hellboy attempts. There's so many other characters we haven't done anything for, but we're still doing Hellboy. So this one is the Crooked Man story. What if there was a crooked thing in the woods that was hurting people? I never read it. I'm sure it's good. Hellboy is a character that you either are all in on or you are just passing through on. I'm very much passing through on Hellboy. The concept to me has never been super appealing since Guillermo del Toro's films. And this literally is not an exception. It does not look interesting. But you know what? It's cheaper. He looks like Hellboy. It doesn't look like a TV movie. So that's something I could say positive about. It does have a really bland filter over it where you're like, oh, are we shooting this not in location? So we're trying to give it like a more ethereal feel to everything. And that's just not going to work. That's probably the case, I'm guessing. Because it doesn't look that good. But then again, Hellboy is supposed to look kind of like dank. So I guess that works for it. I wish I was more excited for a Hellboy thing. Because it's a cool character. It's weird that this is the one that we keep coming back to, you know? Like, we've had more Hellboy attempts than Spawn attempts. And I know that's probably more because Todd McFarlane is like a control freak. But Mike Mignola, like, he's all over this one. So I guess this is like him finally being like, we're going to do it right. I didn't like the David Harbour one. We're going to do it right this time. Which I'm like, you didn't? I never saw it. But I can't imagine it's like a terrible adaptation of the character. I don't know. Very weird. Very mixed stuff going on there. Hopefully it's good. It's just kind of cool that Dark Horse is still allowing this. Like, I know they were talking about like doing Grendel for a while, and there's like the Goon project that's been in development forever. But we should try to do some of these like classic staples again. Like, I want to see Grendel, I want to see Goon, I want to see like a proper adaptation of The Mask. I'd love to see a lot of like that era and that concepts come to life. More than just Hellboy, who's on his 3rd attempt, and it's not going to get better. It's not like these are going to get better the more we do them, right? I can't imagine. But whatever. Let's move on to the next trailer I want to talk about, which is another one that like just came out. This is called Bando, Stone, and the New World. This is a real big budgeted movie. Like, it said it's going to IMAX. This is from Donald Glover, who is directing. It stars Donald Glover. He plays Bando Stone. He is like a singer who wakes up randomly in like a desolate island, and there's nobody left in the world except a mother and her child. And they have to survive against like rabid pigs and big lasers and stuff. And okay, Donald, you've been picking weird projects. This is a real movie that's coming to theaters, and it's gonna coincide with a new album coming from Childish Gambino. So I'm like, okay, whatever you want to do, man. It's such a like bizarre thing. Like you just don't expect any of this from Donald Glover. He has picked his projects so interestingly. Like coming off of Mr. and Mrs. Smith and then doing like the music video for Bigfoot Littlefoot. He has just been doing something weird. When is this supposed to come out? Does it say when this movie's supposed to come out? I don't know. It's very, very strange, but I'm glad this exists because it just shows you he still has that comedic bone in him, and he always has had that comedic bone. He's willing to let himself look a specific way and like behave in a specific way. So this is from Pitchfork.com. The movie trailer shows Glover, who plays the titular Bando Stone, trying to deliver mail in an abandoned town before crossing paths with one of the only other people around, played by Jessica Allen. The two decide to band together along with Allen's child to survive monsters, dinosaurs, sci-fi lasers, and more. Watch below. Okay, cool. So anything else we can say about this? It's all of his people, all of like his creative people that he works with on all of his stuff, like Atlanta and Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They are going to be working on this as well, so that's very cool. Okay, I like that. Yeah, cool. The trailer was fun. It looked really interesting. Glover could lead a movie. He's just never really been given like the chance to lead a movie. It's just kind of cool that he's like, I made a movie. Also, why don't you read or listen, I should say, read my book? No, it's like, listen to my soundtrack. Like, I made a new album. I'm like, okay, Donald, I will do that. That's really interesting. So our final piece of news to talk about kind of like bleeds into the main topic because we got some confirmations for stuff that used to be under the banner of a Max original series that are now going to be headed over to the HBO title, which makes sense. People like HBO. What is a Max original? It's stuff like Hacks, which is good, but HBO is a stronger brand than Max. So yeah, maybe put things under the HBO banner. Welcome to Derry. The It prequel series is going to be one of those. And Harry Potter, which we'll get back to in a minute here. But the one that's kind of most relevant to this audience is Lanterns, which is not going to be on Max anymore. It's going to be an HBO original. 8 episodes from Chris Mundy, Damon Lindelof, and Tom King. And yes, it's a terrestrial-based true detective story with Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. It sounds fine. I don't know how that's going to look. It could either be we're going to have this feel very sci-fi X-Files, or the exact opposite where they have to solve it without using the power of their lantern or something. I hope it's the latter of the two, because you could do something kind of like scary if like we use a lot of like green lighting from the lantern rings. Or we're just going to have like two guys in like regular military attire and Hal Jordan's going to wear like his classic coat and nothing's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to go, but it is kind of interesting, I guess. It's interesting that it exists. We'll see how it goes. I think we're going to see a creative overhaul happen for some of these like TV shows that they announced. We got the writers of The Righteous Gemstones working on Booster Gold, supposedly. I think we'll see that one happen. I don't think we'll see Paradise Lost happen. I just don't imagine they don't want to spend that much money on like a prequel to a Wonder Woman when they could just have the video game tie-in and be better. But we'll see. We will see. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's return to a topic we briefly touched about. Harry Potter. So, along with the announcement of Lanterns and Welcome to Derry becoming HBO originals, the in-development Harry Potter series is also going to be headed over to HBO. Because why not? You know, Amazon did so good doing their Lord of the Rings show. Why not do Harry Potter there as well? I wanted to take this episode just to talk about what are we doing here and why are we doing it? I love the idea of just needless, shameless cashing in on a property just because we have to. I love that so much. It's so fun to me because I'm like, there's no logical reason to do this again. It's not like you're the Percy Jackson Disney Plus series where your first attempt was bad. I would argue the Harry Potter film franchise is one of the most successful for young adults in the history of the genre. Probably the most successful is a very successful book series that has survived and is going to survive outside of its creator. So it is just very weird that anyone would want to do this again. But at the same time, maybe you should try it again. It's weird. It's very weird. And I want to kind of like break down every facet of like why this is happening and how it could go and how everything's going to be involved. So, Warner Brothers announced this a while ago. They were like, we have Harry Potter. We want to continue on doing stuff in this universe. We're probably not going to get the original cast back. Some of them hardly act anymore. Radcliffe and Watson and Grint, they're not like actors who go out and do stuff. Felton's been doing the rounds. He appears on a season of The Flash or whatever, doing whatever. But Radcliffe did just win a Tony, so he's fine living over there. So we're probably not going to get like The Cursed Child or any of that. There was the stage production, so that went fine. People were like, this is weird. It's okay, whatever. And then there was the Fantastic Beasts universe, which failed monumentally. It just came out in a bad time. It missed the mark of what people liked for Harry Potter. So many people involved with that. Okay, I shouldn't say so many people. Mainly Johnny Depp was going through some shit and deserved to be fired from that production. And J.K. Rowling was in her own mess as well, being a terrible person. So it was bound to fail because you also didn't have a real idea. And that series, which started off as Eddie Redmayne has a suitcase, which is a zoo, and his creatures get out of his suitcase, turned into Dumbledore is leading an army against Wizard Hitler, and we have to let World War II happen, or else the wizarding Hitler's going to take over or something. I didn't watch The Secrets of Dumbledore. Was that the last one? Or was it Crimes of Grindelwald? Which was the last one? Because it's Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Fantastic Beasts, The Crime of Grindelwald, and then Fantastic Beasts, The Secret of Dumbledore. Right? They were supposed to do 5 of them. They got to 3. Everyone just kind of accepted that we don't want to see this, which is probably for the best. And then we just like let it go. Because J.K. Rowling was also writing the scripts for those. That's why they kind of sucked. Because she's better at describing a thing than the nuance of, dialogue. Whatever. We don't have to get into that. I don't want to make that the part of this. So essentially, I think to like the majority of just like normal people, the Harry Potter franchise was dead. But to longtime fans, there was still just like fanfics people write. They were still going back and revisiting the books and the movies, and people love them. And they're celebrated. They are of an era, and the people of that era just love and cherish everything about that. And I can't be too mad. I'm not mad about that. It makes sense to me. They're cool enough for people that like that stuff. It is one of those properties, and we talk about this a lot. There are specific things that I just could not get into, no matter how much there is out there for me to try. Harry Potter is one of them. There is nothing about this universe or this lore or these characters that I gravitate to and connect to. I think they are fun. I think I read like the first half of the Deathly Hallows, and then I never read anything else because was it the Half-Blood Prince before the Deathly Hallows? I watched that movie and I was like, that was the first one I saw. I saw the Half-Blood Prince. I'm like, this is okay. And I'm like, I guess I should just see what happens next. So then I started to read that book, and I'm like, this isn't doing anything for me. The moment you like give me like 100 characters in a room, I feel nothing towards them. So I just never connected to this universe. It meant nothing to me, really. I liked the first Fantastic Beasts movie up until it's like, did you know Colin Farrell was actually Hitler? And I'm like, no, I didn't. Why would that be the case? It doesn't matter. Very weird movies, very weird stuff going on up there. I say it's been dead forever. Like no one's really talking about it in like the public consciousness. The like longest legacy it had was J.K. Rowling just continuing to exist and saying things out of pocket. And that's probably why Warner Brothers wants to like change the narrative on Harry Potter. But maybe drawing more light to Harry Potter just draws more light onto Rowling, and it's just like it's a unhealthy mix. I say this too, right? That it's out of the popularity, but we shouldn't forget that Universal Studios has a Harry Potter park that's open and the public can go to. It's like a physical place you can be. And then their big epic universe expansion, which is supposed to like be debuting next summer in 2025, they also have a Harry Potter park opening up that's more like the streets of like Diagon Alley or something like that. Is it Diagon Alley? I think it's more Fantastic Beasts related, but you should just make it like the location people care about, which I think they're going to do. So while it's like not doing great in like terms of, people talking about it like online and stuff, there's always like thousands of people going to the park every single day, every single minute of every single hour. So it's not like it's out of the popularity. It's still a thing people are actively seeing and investing in. The merch does well. Funko is always just making a Harry Potter thing. It's never leaving the public consciousness. Which, why should it? You nailed it on the head the first time. Like, there is nothing wrong with the first 8 adaptations of the films. Like, they are perfect. They are as perfect as you can get to making that franchise work. And I am sure the one thing that worries Warner Brothers the most is that they are not making as much money as they could off that franchise at this very specific moment. But then again, remember this. They have the theme park. They also have Hogwarts Legacy, the video game that came out and sold pretty well, if I'm not mistaken. So there is a need for the franchise to exist. But now I say these two things, the theme park and the video game, they are not based on Harry Potter himself. They exist in his world. So it begs the question, do people like the world or do they like the guy? It's the thing about Star Wars. Do people like Star Wars for the war and the lore and all that bullshit we can play with? Or do they just want to see Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and Princess Leia doing stuff? That's the Harry Potter world. But nonetheless, everything that is old is new again, and everything new eventually becomes old. So we always have to be constantly rebooting stuff. And that is what we are going to do here. So we just got our showrunner for the new adaptation coming to HBO, and that is Francesca Gardner. She has worked on His Dark Materials and Succession, 2 very positive things that came out on HBO. And Mark Mylod, who directed episodes of Game of Thrones and Succession, he will also direct multiple episodes of this show. Okay, Mark Mylod, you were the one that made the menu, and now you're going back to television. Okay. I mean, somebody had to bite the bullet, I guess. I just can't imagine any creative being super in love with the idea of going to do Harry Potter again. Like, if that was handed to me, I don't know if it's something I'd want to do, because it's not like Percy Jackson. Because Percy Jackson, we talked about that first movie. It's weird and bad and stupid. And the second one's worse. So getting Riordan, whatever his name is, to focus more on doing the next one, like the new series for Disney Plus, like that makes sense to me, because he's actually going to try to get it perfect. Get it right the way he envisioned it, right? And it's not the same as like getting a showrunner to do the X-Men for the MCU, where, those movies were successful and they have their fans, but we could do it better and more positive. You are literally taking one of the most successful like story universe ever, because it is. Like, Harry Potter, like the books, the movies, the world, the merchandise, it is one of the most profitable and prominent things in all of pop culture and all of history. People are going to talk about it. It is up there right now of like King Arthur and Robin Hood. It's become one of those iconic things that people are going to talk about forever. But you nailed the adaptation. So there's really nothing new you can add to the world that's going to give it more depth or change the way people feel about it. You are coming in already on like the bottom level of like the totem pole where you're not going to be able to climb out of the trenches here. There's nothing you could physically do that's going to make people think you're doing this for the right reasons. You could be the biggest Harry Potter fan of all time, have so much ideas for the world, but you have 8 pretty close to perfect films to compete with that people own on DVD, that people have access to right now, that they can watch right now, and have very little to do with the world of J.K. Rowling and how she's been like existing lately. So it is an uphill battle. Now, the other thing with doing television over movies is it's not the same level of audience. So it's going to become more just niche. And that, I guess, could work. But you have to imagine, a lot of these movies made close to $1 billion. They were successful. People liked them. How many people have like HBO and HBO Max and like all that stuff? It's not as much as the people that went to a movie theater. It's very strange. Now, I think you could... It's complicated and it really bothers me. I was going to be like, I think you could just like re-release the movies and you'd make enough money back, which you could. And there's no way that Warner Bros. Isn't thinking about that. To celebrate like a certain anniversary, I'm sure they would do that. But it's not a great idea to really want to explore this again. And I have to wonder, like, is it just for the idea that we can keep this brand in the public consciousness? Or is it because we want to try to distance this brand from its creator? Now, there was reports that came out a couple of weeks ago that Warner Brothers was trying to buy Harry Potter out from J.K. Rowling, which is interesting. I feel like they could reach like a tentative deal where she sells the rights to Warner Brothers fully. I think that could happen, kind of like a George Lucas thing. But then you'd have like the idea of did they pay too much and she got too much money from it? I guess it doesn't really matter because she's like a billionaire anyway, so it doesn't matter how much she gets. She's going to be fine either way. It's very messy in that aspect. But also when they like first announced this show, she was going to produce and be like a huge proponent of it, just somebody who's actively invested in it. So they're not like moving away that much from it. It's very interesting. This is also going to be impossible to cast. How do you cast the next generation of Harry Potter when to an entire generation? I would go beyond an entire generation to every single person who has ever seen a Harry Potter movie or has read the books. You nailed the casting on every single turn. Even when actors passed away like Dumbledore, you got a great actor in their place. You are not. There is no way you can find somebody as equal footing as the cast you had the first time on any level. Like, this also, getting someone like Mark Mylod, it seems like you want to go for like a little more fun. I know he's directed big episodes of Game of Thrones and stuff, but I think just like the succession of it all just like adds this other weird layer to it where the way that show looks just does not have like the same look as something that a Harry Potter should. I don't know. It's very strange. Now I'm seeing here he also worked on stuff like The Last of Us and Shameless, but again, I don't know. See, I think about those shows too. Game of Thrones, Succession, The Last of Us, Shameless even His Dark Materials to some extent, because that's what Francesca Gardner has worked on too. Those are for adults. Those are adult properties. And Harry Potter, especially in like the early seasons when you have like 12-year-olds as the main characters, that is aimed for kids. So how much are we going to just do like a book a season and have like the first season feel very youthful and energetic and have it grow up? It's very different. It's also going to be a little bit different filming schedules, just because I have to imagine, like, it's HBO. It's like you do one season and then 2 years later you might get like 8 episodes of season 2. It's a different filming schedule. These take place over like a school semester or something. I don't know how that's going to feel. It's so bizarre. And like, I would get it if Harry Potter wasn't the biggest thing in the world. Like, I would get that. Because like Disney redoing Percy Jackson or Willow or Tron, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. You have an established world and you have an audience that wants to accept that world and be a part of it. But when it comes to Harry Potter, it is everything. It's everywhere. Everyone knows it still. People still quote it. People still love those characters. They talk about the movies. They talk about the actors. People follow Daniel Radcliffe's like talk or conversations about J.K. Rowling, and they follow his career. People celebrate Michael Gambon and everything. It's just so bizarre. And it doesn't come from like a place where you're like, this is a genuine idea. It comes from, we have this property, we have to make it work. And this is something that's just wrong with the current stasis of Hollywood, which is just, we own this IP that we can market and sell and corrupt and manipulate. We have to keep it in the public consciousness instead of just letting things live in the past. Because some things are just better in the era where they originally existed in. Now, I'm not saying Harry Potter is that, but it came out, the original books came out in like the 90s to 2000s era to 2010. It is currently 2024. By the time we actually have this series made, it would be like 2026. I would have to imagine that a lot of like the audience that grew up reading Harry Potter are going to be parents now. So maybe they'd rather see Daniel Radcliffe return for the cursed child. Or maybe they'd rather just show kids like the version that they had, as opposed to having their kids have a new version that isn't the one they're familiar with. It's all very weird. It's the Star Wars thing all over again. There are ways to do it, but just straight up adapting the books again for television, that might not be the way to do it. The successful things when it comes to like this idea that I think of the modern time have worked. To some extent, I think like the Rings of Power did okay. I think because one, they could only do certain elements of that, so they had to like play with like what people want to see and what they are allowed to do. I think Star Trek Strange New Worlds is an example of that working as well, where it's like, well, this is its own continuity, but we could just be leading up to the original series, so if the characters pop up, you're not going to be upset. But this is just doing Harry Potter again. And when we have the most successful adaptation of that already in everyone's mind, it's never going to come off as normal or what people want. I don't know. It's very weird. There could be nothing good from it. Now, I say all of this too. I am not somebody who gives a shit about Harry Potter. I can't connect to the world. I don't really like the characters. It's a prime example when I was growing up, and I'll briefly touch upon this. When I was growing up, it was prominent in like places where I liked content and, you know, the fandoms I was a part of, the social media pages I was on, and even just in like my friend group and my family and stuff like that. Harry Potter was popular. People liked it. And I was just like, the more people are telling me this is like the most amazing thing in the world, the more I just don't understand why that is. And part of my dislike for Harry Potter is just everyone telling me it's so cool. And just like when I'm a young man watching this, I just don't understand how this is any different than other stuff I have watched. but I'll never discredit someone for liking it because I get it. It's got all the hallmarks of like a classic story. It's kids in school, they're making friends, they're falling in love, they're fighting people, they're special, they're magic, they're chosen ones. Chosen one stories never really work for me. I just hate the idea that somebody is like prominent and perfect and they're the only thing that could save the world. I don't connect with that and I don't like it. It means nothing to me. But as I have rewatched the movies and experienced the world more, I do like the movies. I think they are good. I like the acting. I like the camera choices. I think it is the best interpretation you can of that world. And I just wonder if trying to expand on like small moments or key scenes to better fit the book is going to help people. It's also not like Dune, where Dune was like popular to science fiction nerds. And when they finally like doing an adaptation, you have the science fiction nerds being like, well, this is not like the book. Every fucking person has read this book. This is a prominent book. It is heavily featured and marketed. Everyone you know, like from 18 to 36, has probably read this book or owns this book. Any iteration of it. And even like older fans in like their 40s and 50s have probably read this book. It is popular and prominent. And I'll say this with confidence. You have very different iterations. The books, the movies, the sequel movies, Fantastic Beasts, which is a prequel, but you know what I mean. The video game and the theme park. I can say with certainty that doing one of those for television is probably the weakest form that could get, because it is going to feel the most needlessly cash grabby of any of those. Theme park, you get to experience it in real life. Hogwarts Legacy, you get to make your own character and live in that world, which is like the interactive thing people like. You have the movies, you have the books. So let's just do another form of that and try something different. I don't know. Maybe I could be completely off base here, and maybe this is going to work for a lot of people, but I can't imagine it's going to be something people like. Now, there's another like series like this we could talk about, because the time that this video comes out, I'm also recording my review for the second season of Interview with the Vampire, which Interview with the Vampire, a successful book that launched a movie in the 90s with two of the biggest stars at the time, and it was okay. And then that goes to television for 2 seasons of a show that completely reinvents what it's about. It changes some parts of the characters and turns it into something wholly different and becomes like a more openly romantic and beautiful piece as opposed to what the movie was allowed to portray. So maybe this could be like Interview with the Vampire. But on that note, too, there's only one Interview with the Vampire movie with Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise and Kirsten Dunst. There's 8 of these movies with Radcliffe and Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, and Ray Fiennes and Alan Rickman and everybody. So it's kind of different because there's more, but it could be better. It's just not, though. There's no way it could be better. It's going to rely too much on like nostalgia and things like that to really make it work. It's complicated. When you have like the biggest thing in the world, television feels like a step backwards, which is the case with something like Star Wars, but that also didn't focus on Luke Skywalker on television. So maybe what we actually needed to do was get a different story being told in the Harry Potter universe, a different type of prequel. Maybe focus on another generation of kids. I wouldn't want to focus on like Harry and Hermione's kid. No, Harry and what's Ron's sister's name? Ginny. Harry and Ginny's kids, and then Ron and Hermione's kids, because that'd be boring. And I feel like doing like Lily and James Potter and like Severus Snape as like teenagers would be too obvious. And then like young sexy Jude Law Dumbledore, we tried that in the movie, so we couldn't do that. So maybe you even go further back, kind of like the Acolyte, and do like, what's the origin of magic or something? I don't know. If you want to make this like an extended universe, maybe have it feel connected to those movies as opposed to just redoing the movies. But maybe if we redo it here, we can cast actors that we could put in spin-offs. So we could do like the Lily and James and whatever prequel series, and like the actor we have playing Snape could show up younger or something, or maybe. God, it's annoying. I don't know. I feel so bad for this property because I would rather see Francesca Gardner do something else. Mark my lot. I mean, he's going to be trapped at HBO forever, so I'm not like really worried about him. But I like to see Francesca do something different than Harry Potter. Because this also runs the gamut of like people are too close to the material and they're just going to, ruin it because they're not going to like have a new story to tell. It's why I'm really respecting The Acolyte by Leslie Headland, because she's like, I have ideas for Star Wars and they're different than what people expect. So I'm going to be allowed to change things as opposed to Dave Filoni just controlling everything. And that's cool to see. But I can't imagine that for Harry Potter. We also don't know still if J.K. Rowling is going to be attached fully. Her name will be on it. I don't think for a second there's a sum of money they could throw at her to have her take her name off anything. I don't want to get into the J.K. Rowling of it all, but it's kind of exhausting, and it kind of sucks that like the most prominent story for like young adults about being special and being accepted for who you are and everything like that is from such like a transphobic person. I think that really, really defeats the purpose of the character and her involvement in the story, and shows you that maybe she did rip off a lot of different types of character arcs and whatever. And it just really sucks that that's what the other legacy of Hogwarts is going to be. It's just its creator being this person who doesn't see what she created for a whole generation of people and fans and whatever. God, it sucks. So I don't know how this could go, but it can't be good. It can't be like, oh, finally, we're doing the proper Harry Potter. If you feel that way, please let me know, because maybe I'm off base here, but I am of the generation. I'm in my 20s. I have a lot of friends and family that are in their 20s. Every one of them that I know, and I'm going to call her out for a minute here. I'm going to use my sister as an example. She is somebody who is not as like rabidly in fandom or online culture as me, but every time we go to a movie together, or every time we see like a trailer or I bring something up in the news, she's like, ugh, I can't believe they're remaking that, or they should just let it die. And I'm like, you do realize studios want money, right? But she also likes, the new Last Airbender series on Netflix and stuff. So I'm like, we could let things die, but no one's going to let them. So you are still angry at these things for existing, but you still watch them. And it's just complex. And I feel like The Last Airbender may be like the closest example, now that I think about it, to what this could be. Where you nailed it the first time, what are you gaining from doing this again? I don't know. It's so messy, and just I feel like normal people, like my sister, are going to be adamantly against this. Be like, this is stupid. Why are you like ruining a good thing? But also, they're gonna watch this over the new original show that is just as interesting with like characters you aren't familiar with. So you're not gonna like react to like seeing the new Hagrid actor or something. I don't know. It's a lot. I don't know any kids that could play these leads because I don't know kid actors, but fuck it, let's make Hermione black. You know what? We could do it with Annabeth. We could do it with Hermione. I don't know. I feel like that would kill a lot of people. Who cares? None of these characters are real. It doesn't matter how they look or how they talk or whatever. But if there was such like a visceral reaction to some of like the stuff before, I can't even begin to imagine how people would react like today to some of this stuff. Probably terribly. But there you go, 2026. Maybe we'll come back and talk about it. Maybe before then even, we'll talk about Harry Potter. I can't imagine I'd ever go back and rewatch those movies. Maybe this will give me a reason to, and maybe I'll have like a new appreciation. I doubt it. But until then, we have 2 years to see if this is actually going to happen. And let's see where J.K. Rowling ends up. Maybe in prison. She won't go to prison. That was a stupid thing to say. But hey, thank you all for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And I don't know why I said review. This is not a review. The review's for the other one that I'm doing. Either way, have fun. Stay safe. Good luck. Harry Potter, the boy who lived.